Enquiry Podcast. I'm Lucas. We are here with Paul, who has been a part of youth work team for 25 years. He is currently a youth development worker for Stewartry. However, he's retiring in May. Welcome along, Paul. We are very excited to have you here today. To start us off, if you could be any app on your phone, what would you be and why?
App? Jeez, that's a hard one. Do you know what apps I like? I like the plane finder apps where you can track planes and you can now point them up to the sky if a plane's flying above you and it tells you what the plane is and where it's going. I quite like those ones. I'd be one of them.
Track the bomb.
Can you tell us about your journey with youth work?
Gee whiz. It's been a long journey. I think I moved out of Dumfries from Glasgow 25 years ago. Started working in the Oasis Youth Centre, and I thought I'd maybe be in Dumfries for a couple of years and maybe move on to something else, but it's turned out completely differently. My job has changed consistently over the years, so I was never doing the same job all the way through. My job's always changed, and I worked in, doing all the music development work in Oasis for a long time, and then the chance came to take over the Stewartry area about 7 years ago, and I decided to go for that, and I loved it. It was a great new project because there was hardly anything happening in Stewartry, so it was like starting with a blank canvas. Pardon me, but it's so yeah, that's a kind of quick snapshot. But there's been loads of high points and loads of proud moments along every one of those years. It's been fabulous.
Why did you become a youth worker?
Good question. But in a previous life, I worked in the music industry, so I used to tour with bands doing live tours. I worked in recording studios, and then I stopped doing that, and a job came up in a youth centre just outside Glasgow, and I went along to speak to them, and I liked to look at it, and I got the job, and I loved working there because it was still doing music that I loved, but it was like. It had the youth work element, which I learned. So I learned youth work through is like experiential learning. That I learned youth work by working with some great people and observing all the things that they'd done, and observing the sort of ethos and sort of principles of youth work through that. So that's how I got into it, and I worked there for 3.5 years before the job at Oasis came up.
Why did you want to work with young people?
I don't really think. I think this is going to sound cheesy. I feel as though youth work kind of found me through the music. Like I never really considered youth work as a career. Music was a big passion of mine, and that's what I followed. And through that music, I kind of stumbled upon youth work. But I like to think that youth work found me. It's a bit cheesy, I know, but I do feel that.
Have you learned anything from youth work or working with young people?
Do you know something? It's been quite emotional telling everybody over the last few weeks that I'm going to be leaving my post. But one of the youth workers said something to me that, like, loads of people have said lovely things, but one of the youth workers said, and I wasn't expecting it at all for this person, and they said to me that I had totally changed the way that they thought about things, and it had made them a better person. And I was like, do you know that way? I was just like really taken aback. I was like, wow. And I actually think youth work has actually made me a better person as well, I think. And it's definitely made me a better parent. I know that for sure. In terms of, the way you think about parenting is, I think I would have parented totally differently if I hadn't been had the youth work experience, I think.
What are some of the common challenges that young people are facing right now?
Poverty is right up there. I think COVID is right up there. We're still seeing the fallout from COVID. I would say, like some of the, when you do this job and you get to know a lot of the young people and you find out some of their backstories, and the things that they have to deal with at home, and then behaviours that they display because of that isn't surprising. I would say in Dumfries and Galloway, drugs, alcohol, I think all the kind of usual things. I think young people's mental health is it just feels, sometimes it feels like it's unstoppable, and I know everybody says like social media. I think there's like a multitude of factors why young people's mental health is suffering so much. So there's so many issues that young people need to deal with. I think one of the big ones for me is the sort of like lack of hope, like in terms of what the future holds, because I think a lot of young people are going through school and then maybe get to college and uni, but like I don't know, I think that's a big change from generations gone by, where there was like I think young people could see like a path and a way forward better in the past than they do now, and I think that affects all aspects of young people's life.
What was your favourite group to work with?
Favourite group of youth peaks? Or youth
Just
group?
Anything. Any youth group.
Oh, there's too many. Well, I would say I worked with the events team in Oasis for years, and we had a consistently strong group of young people who I watched them grow, and they were involved in most of the early youth beats, and they were. I watched them grow and become more confident, more experienced, and then I remember one year they actually spec'd and operated the whole lighting system on the main stage, and operated with no professional staff. And it was stressful, but it was like a big achievement for them to pull that off. And I remember when we get inspected around that time, and I get interviewed with one of the inspectors, and they were asking me about the events team, and because they were quite interested, and they were saying, and I was trying to explain to them that I had shown them everything that I'd learned like over the years, and then it got to a point where technology was developing at such a fast rate that it actually reversed, and I was learning things off of them. And I remember the inspector at the time thinking it was a really interesting concept where it almost like went full circle, where the young people were teaching the youth worker, which is quite funny. So I quite like to think of that.
What is one of the most rewarding experience with a young person?
It's a privilege. You're given a privilege to be a part of a young person's life, especially if they're going through hard times, and they trust you so much to share like really deep and important stuff. Like, and youth workers should never ever take that for granted. So I would say that, and I would also say, if you're working with a young person or a group of young people who who can be really difficult and challenging and all the rest of it, but then at some point down the line, you don't give up on them, and when the penny drops or the light bulb moment, when the light switch on and you see a total change in that young person, that's the thing that gives you a real buzz, and that's the thing that motivates us all as youth workers, I would say.
As a final question, what is your favourite memory of your time in youth work service? In the youth work service?
I can't possibly think of one. I remember probably like funny ones, I would say, well, Calvin Harris came in and used the studio in Oasis. That was pretty cool. A young Calvin Harris came in. He had he made music in his bedroom, and he had a wee bit of interest from a record label in New York, but he wanted to make them sound better and more professional. He came in and used the studio, and he still remembers that, by the way, because I bumped into him years later, and he still remembers that. So that was pretty cool. A couple of other ones that stand out. I remember a couple of some of our young people who were on the management committee at this one time, who are now members of staff for the Youth Work Service, but they'll remain nameless. They know who they are, and they weren't happy about some decisions that we made, and they actually went on strike outside Oasis, and they were like formed a picket line, so they were trying to stop like staff and that going into work. I quite liked that. That was quite funny. Starting Youth Beats like way back in 2009. Like that was pretty good. And then there's so many, but then like taking over the Stewartry area as well, I think it was it felt like moving to a new job and starting afresh. So that'll always be, I always have fond memories of that.
Thank you for being here with us today. It's been great speaking with you. Come back next week for more podcasts like this. And remember to follow us on all social medias. Bye.
Follow us to keep up with more podcasts.